Some voices carry children into eternity. When Morgan Freeman walked onto the Tonight Show stage with that legendary presence and timeless wisdom that had made his voice one of the most recognizable sounds in the world, nobody expected him to reveal the most heartbreaking chapter of his final mission. Jimmy Fallon had planned a reverential interview about Morgan's incredible career. The audience was ready for the profound insights that always came with a Morgan Freeman appearance. But what Morgan was about to confess would silence Studio 6B and prove that sometimes the most important performances happen not in movie theaters, but in hospital rooms where blind children experience beauty through the voice they call God's voice. The cameras were rolling, the audience already mesmerized by Morgan's commanding presence, and then he spoke 17 words that changed everything. I record bedtime stories for blind kids who are dying because they'll never see movies, but they can hear heaven. What came next wasn't just television, it was a revelation about legacy, mortality, and the sacred power of voice to paint worlds that exist beyond sight for children whose darkness is not just physical, but eternal. Morgan Freeman had always been known for his incomparable voice and spiritual gravitas, the actor whose narration could transform any story into something profound. But what audiences didn't know was that Morgan's understanding of voice transcending physical limitations had been shaped by his own gradual vision deterioration, and that experience had awakened a calling to use his legendary voice to create final gifts for children who would never experience the visual world. The Final Stories recordings had begun 9 years earlier, during a period when Morgan was confronting his own mortality and gradual eyesight changes that reminded him how precious vision truly was. The realization that some children lived entire brief lives without ever seeing light had given him insight into how his voice could serve as their window to experiences they would never have. When I started having vision problems, I realized how much understanding came through sight, Morgan explained with characteristic depth. I began understanding what it might be like for children born blind, especially those facing terminal illness. They'll never see sunsets, movies, or parents' faces, but they can hear, and voice can paint pictures more beautiful than anything eyes can see. Congenital blindness combined with terminal illness affects thousands of children worldwide, creating double tragedy where young patients navigate fatal diseases while existing in permanent darkness. These children often miss visual entertainment that typically helps sick children cope with medical procedures. These children face death without experiencing visual beauty, Morgan said with emotion. They've never seen rainbows, characters in movies, or faces of people who love them, but through carefully crafted storytelling, they can experience adventures that transcend what eyes can show. Morgan's first encounter with a terminally ill blind child had been at St. Jude Hospital, where he met 6-year-old Isabella, born blind and facing final stages of a rare condition that would claim her life before her 7th birthday. Isabella had never experienced stories through movies, Morgan remembered with tears. She told me she wondered what it would be like to have stories told by the movie voice, my voice from films she'd heard about but could never see. Working with specialists, Morgan had developed personalized story recordings specifically designed for blind children facing terminal illness, using his legendary voice to paint detailed worlds existing entirely in sound and imagination. These aren't just bedtime stories, Morgan emphasized. These are complete sensory experiences for children who will never have visual input. I describe colors through emotions, create landscapes through sounds, build characters through voice nuances that blind children hear more clearly than anyone. Over 9 years, Morgan's program had reached 112 blind children facing terminal diagnoses. Each recording was personally crafted based on the child's interests and medical prognosis. I worked with 8-year-old Marcus, who had been blind since birth and was dying from brain cancer, Morgan remembered. Marcus loved superheroes but had never experienced comic stories because they were visual. Morgan's recording for Marcus had been an epic superhero adventure, told entirely through sound, with detailed descriptions Marcus could experience completely through audio. Marcus listened to his superhero story every night during final weeks, Morgan said with pride. His mother said Marcus would smile and move his hands like he was flying. The story gave him adventures he could never see but could completely experience. The approach worked because it acknowledged blind children could have complete experiences through expertly crafted audio storytelling that engaged their enhanced listening abilities. There was 9-year-old Emma, who had been born without eyes and was dying from metabolic disorder, Morgan shared with emotion. Emma's parents were devastated. She would never see their faces or experience visual beauty. Emma's recording had been a detailed, magical garden journey where every element was described through sounds and sensations Emma could understand without visual reference. Emma's recording included her parents' voices describing their love, woven into a story about a brave girl who could see with her heart, Morgan explained. Emma told her parents she could picture exactly what they looked like because love has a face you can see with your soul. Tonight's appearance was supposed to focus on Morgan's latest projects and career reflections. Jimmy had planned to discuss his approach to meaningful roles and tap into the gravitas that made him revered. The interview had started with Morgan's characteristic dignity. He had shared insights about recent work and demonstrated the profound presence that made him one of cinema's most respected voices. But when Jimmy asked about Morgan's legacy and what he hoped his voice would be remembered for, something shifted in his expression. "You know, Jimmy," Morgan said, his voice taking on deeper resonance, "I've spent decades using my voice to tell stories on screen, but the most important stories I've ever told have been for children who will never see those movies, children leaving this world without ever having seen its beauty." The audience grew silent, sensing Morgan was moving into more profound territory. "That sounds like very personal experience," Jimmy said with deep respect. Morgan was quiet for a moment, his composure softened by vulnerability. "I do, and it comes from understanding that sight is a gift I took for granted until my own eyes began failing and realizing there are children dying who never had that gift." The studio focused completely on Morgan's words, shifting from entertainment to something spiritual. "Morgan, it sounds like you're working directly with children who are both blind and facing serious illness," Jimmy said softly. Morgan's eyes filled with tears, shocking coming from someone known for unwavering strength. "For 9 years, I've been recording personalized stories for blind children who are dying, children who will never see movies, but whose last experiences can still be filled with adventure and beauty through voice." The audience was silent, witnessing a side of Morgan that transcended his legendary status, profound humanity dedicated to comforting children facing ultimate darkness. "Jimmy, can I tell you about something that's taught me what voice really means?" Morgan asked, his words carrying weight of years with dying children. "Please," Jimmy replied, understanding something sacred was being shared. Morgan spoke directly to the camera with the authority that made him America's most trusted narrator. "I create personalized story recordings for terminally ill blind children through Final Stories, 112 children over 9 years who will never see the world, but can experience its beauty through stories crafted specifically for them." Jimmy's expression changed completely. "You're using your voice to create final experiences for blind children who are dying." "I'm using the gift I've been given to ensure children who live in darkness and face death can still experience wonder and beauty," Morgan replied with conviction. "These children may never see movies, but they can hear stories more vivid than any film." Tears streamed down Jimmy's face. "Can you tell us about one of these children?" "Isabella was 6 when I met her," Morgan said tenderly. "Born blind and dying from rare genetic condition. She asked me to tell her what heaven might look like because she was going there soon, but was sad she would never know if it was beautiful." Morgan paused, gathering himself. "I created a story for Isabella about a place where everything glows with warmth instead of light, where angels sing colors instead of showing them. Isabella listened to that story every day until she passed away. How do these children respond to your stories? Jimmy asked through tears. They experience complete worlds, Morgan replied with wonder. Their enhanced hearing allows them to catch every nuance. They tell me they can see characters and adventures more clearly than sighted children see movies because their imagination isn't limited by visual expectations. The audience was openly emotional, witnessing this revelation about Morgan's private work, creating final gifts for vulnerable children. Morgan, how has this work changed your understanding of using your voice? Jimmy asked. It's taught me that voice isn't just sound, it's the ability to create reality for people who need it most, Morgan replied with wisdom. These dying blind children showed me that the greatest stories aren't ones that entertain millions. They're ones that give a single child beauty they could never see with eyes, but can experience completely with their heart. The segment concluded with sustained applause that transcended appreciation, recognition of art transformed into ministry, acknowledgement that they had witnessed someone using their greatest gift to ensure no child dies without experiencing wonder. Morgan's revelation became one of the most moving Tonight Show segments in television history, inspiring conversations about accessibility and the power of voice to transcend physical limitations. Most importantly, Morgan's disclosure showed that sometimes the greatest performance an actor can give is not in a movie theater, but in a hospital room where his voice becomes the last beautiful thing a blind child experiences, proving that true artistry serves love when that love is needed most.